Hi there, and welcome to episode 10, I think it is now, of the Gentle Revolution podcast, where we are seeking to connect people with purpose. And by purpose, I mean higher purpose. And higher purpose, as I hope you'll come to understand, is achieved through the pursuit of personal peace. This episode has been one of my favorite. I say that every episode, but I'm pulling out some big guns now. This is an interview with Doctor Oscar Serrallach, who is well known to many people. I think he was in Goop once. He is an amazing medical doctor who reinvigorated my passion for the potential of medicine. As many of us have seen, no doubt, modern medicine has had some twists and turns which have made it, unfortunately, a little bit less respected, trusted by many. But what I learnt through working, in fact, with Oscar Serrallach for a period of time and collaborating with him, he's been my student and co-facilitator. We've studied Yoga Nidra together and have a shared interest, which comes across, I think, quite strongly in this episode, where we talk about Yoga Nidra as a tool, as in many ways a panacea for so many ailments. Oscar, and he discussed this at length in the episode, works a lot with postpartum mothers, women who have been through childbirth and are depleted for many, many reasons. And he points again and again to Yoga Nidra, and the science absolutely supports this. Yoga Nidra as a tool for giving us that deep rest, that deep invigoration that so many need. Women who have just had babies obviously are mostly significantly depleted through that process and need support from the community, but also through practice. And Yoga Nidra is an amazing tool. It's been such a pleasure to chat with Oscar in this episode. I've just finished editing it and I'm really touched and moved. Oscar participated in a number of courses with me a few years ago, and we discussed this in the episode. He came to Bali, where I am right now, and he did an intensive 50-hour training, our level 1 meditation training, and then continued on through level 2. And it was such a pleasure to have him as a student, an honor, in fact, to have him as a student. But I learned, and continue to learn through so much through the process, his passion for science, but his open-mindedness around what's possible with these practices inspires me. And I think it'll inspire you. I hope you enjoy the episode. If you are interested in joining one of our trainings, we do have our meditation, breathwork, Yoga Nidra teacher training running at the end of August 2025 at the Byron Yoga Centre as an intensive course, and also online from the beginning of September 2025. If you're listening to this episode after that, then you can check our website and find current dates. It's such a pleasure to teach this course, to share my love of the practice, and particularly Yoga Nidra. I've seen it change the lives of so many. I've experienced it changing my life, having a sustainable, nurturing practice to carry us through whatever the times are. It truly is a gift for the ages, which I'm fortunate, grateful to have in my own life, and so honoured to be able to pay forward to so many other people, Oscar Serrallach included. So I hope you enjoy the episode. Please do share and follow, subscribe, all those things, and let me know what you think. I really do love to hear. Warm welcome to Dr. Oscar Serrallach. Welcome to the Gentle Revolution podcast. I am so stoked to have you here. I'm excited. I've got a lot of stuff that I want to talk to you about. I love our conversations.
It's a real honor to be on your podcast, Mark, because you've been quite an inspiration for me over the years in my sort of own personal development. So it's a circle. And then, and as you're alluding to, we get to nerd out in public. It's great.
Yeah, it's cool. Look, I'd like to give you a little bit of an introduction. So, and just explain to the good folk at home who I think you are, and then I'm going to invite you to expand their awareness. So it gives you a bit of an insight as to what I know about you. So you are Dr. Oscar Serrallach. You are a medical doctor, a general practitioner with something now of a specialization in postpartum wellbeing for women, which is a very cool tangent that I guess it's just the evolution of your journey. When I met you, you were working as, and you still are working as a functional medical doctor at the Health Lodge. And some people won't know what functional medical doctors are or what they do, and I'm going to ask you to explain that in a little while, but I'll just say this: meeting you as a functional medical doctor reinvigorated my excitement around the medical profession and what was possible. But you've also got another really important aspect of your life, and I mean, I'm sure you don't divide it up, but you're a yogi and a meditator and someone who's really deeply passionate about a path of personal well-being. And you have an amazing wife who is kind of a superhuman. Really?
Yep.
Not denying it. Pretty
Very keen
special.
for sure. Yep.
Carolyn Cowley, who is an incredible bhakti yogi who really resonates powerfully within our community and brings mantra forward, and that's a part of your world. We have studied together, and it's interesting because when I first met you, I was learning so much from you about polyvagal. You were the first person to actually introduce me to polyvagal theory, and then we started speaking about Yoga Nidra over the years when we were working together at the Health Lodge, and then you came and studied with me, which was a great honor, and to have you join me for a course in Bali and then continue on when we finished our meditation and pranayama training and specifically our Yoga Nidra training. So it was really wonderful to have you doing that course and to share your wisdom within that forum. And what's really, I mean, there's many things I like about you, Oscar, but one of the things that you and I always love to jam on is this practice of Yoga Nidra. So I obviously really want to talk about that today. So I'm going to start throwing you some questions and some openings.
Sure.
And I would like you perhaps to begin just to extrapolate a little bit on your journey as a medical doctor. How did you get into medicine? Why did you get into medicine? And what path did that take you on?
Yeah, I'll make a long story relatively short, Mark. But yeah, I was always interested in human biology at high school, and it was almost a natural extension to human biology take us. I was interested in the body. I was lucky that my marks were quite good at high school, so I got into medical school. And I realized in medical school, it's a system that's really trying to shape people to be operating the medical system. And that was the main focus. And you're learning human science as part of that. And so I was always a little bit conflicted going, I'm learning more about how to operate in the system than I am necessarily about human biology and the human sciences, but they're both happening in tandem. And after I graduated from medical school, I became a little bit of a medical gypsy, but I wasn't really finding my place in the medical world. So I was just doing locum work. I tried indigenous health. I tried addiction medicine. Tried all different types of. I was actually trained to be a psychiatrist for a couple of years. Not many people know that about me. And again, I found it interesting, but it was like, I don't want to be a psychiatrist. I'm really interested in mental health, but also,
so an abiding interest in the mind, that's always been there.
Yeah. What makes us tick, essentially, and what motivates us, because something that I was really aware of is health behavior.
Yeah, so cool. Yeah.
And
why we do what we do.
Exactly. And most of the people that, I ended up just going into emergency medicine because I felt that was the most honest aspect of medicine in terms of research. You actually feel like you're doing a great job, and you don't.
We're good at it.
Well, we are really good at it. And there's no pretense behind emergency medicine. And there's no pretense that you're actually healing people. You're just fixing them, but you're not healing them.
Keep them breathing.
Yeah, exactly. And then, but when I started a family, I was like, I can't really be doing emergency medicine forever because it's a lot of night duties and rosters. And so I started getting into sort of general practice. And when we look at chronic disease management, that's all it is. We're managing it. We're not actually treating it. And then I got quite frustrated because you could see things like health behaviors, and as a GP, there was just a lot of band-aid sort of stuff going on. But one, you don't have the time. One, you don't have the resources in terms of being able to refer people on to people that would really help in the fixing journey. And a yoga prescription is not a prescription in the GP world, for example. It's just a sort of a recommendation, but under the guise of exercise, essentially.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, we generally think it's a nice thing to do. We're not quite sure why, because we've actually probably most of us have never done it. But we read somewhere that there is some evidence to support that some sort of yoga practice is generally a positive thing. I think that's basically the recommendation, which is good. It's better than none.
I've talked to GPs and they talk about it like it's group exercise. And it is that, but plus much, much more, obviously.
Of course, yeah.
And so in my very early start with GP medicine, I started getting into what was initially called nutritional and environmental medicine, which is integrative medicine, which is also functional medicine. So what the difference really is, you're looking at all the disease processes that medicine focuses on. So that's, you don't ignore that. It's actually the core part. But then you're looking at all the influences. And so the influences are nutrition, the environment, so things like toxins in our environment, and you're trying to look at things in a more, to use an over-banded word, holistically, rather than just a linear model, which is modern medicine, and it does a very good job at linear thinking, but it's not very good at sort of systems thinking. And we now know with all the latest research, everything's interconnected. The vagal system, the microbiome, and our health. You can't differentiate one from the other.
Yeah, yeah. I do want to talk to you about those two specific things, in fact, the vagus nerve and the microbiome, just to sort of date our understanding. And we have spoken on this podcast before about polyvagal theory. I actually had a great chat with Simon Dubois about polyvagal theory not so long ago. So I won't ask you to give the full download of it because the information is public. But what I'm really interested in was you were the first person, as I mentioned before, who introduced me to polyvagal theory. I remember hearing you talking about it at a team meeting at the Health Lodge, and I was like, oh, that sounds really interesting. And at that time, I just assumed that I'd missed something and that you guys had, been working with this for a long time. And that was probably about 2016, 2017, 18, whatever it was. And I realized subsequently, in fact, it was really new research that had only just been published. The Deb Dana had, in fact, only really just started, and Stephen Porges had really only just started pushing out this information into the public sphere. So you had probably only just taken it on yourself and you were integrating it into your understanding. And for me, it was just like, well, as a yogi, as a yoga practitioner, as a yoga teacher, and particularly someone with a focus on relaxation yoga and Yoga Nidra specifically and pranayama, that it was like, wow, okay, it so deeply validates what we do and provides this increasingly credible scientific understanding, which really clearly proves why this stuff is so good for us.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's why I just resonated with polyvagal theory, because it really backed up what I was experiencing and what I was observing. And that it also provided a pathway in terms of improving people's health through nervous system regulation.
Stressed people don't heal.
Exactly. And to be honest, most of my work now fundamentally is around nervous system recuperation. As you mentioned, my focus is on helping mothers in the years after birth, and their nervous system has been through a battering. And so for me, polyvagal theory is a bit of a Trojan horse in some ways to enable, one, the validation, as you mentioned, and then also a path forward. Because what I often tell my clients is that there is no magic pill, but there's a magic approach.
Love it.
And the magic approach starts with understanding a little bit about the nervous system. And what's fascinating for me about the nervous system, we've all got one. We've all been using our nervous system our whole lives. And it's like a language. It's like we just learn the language from our home. But when you start to get into polyvagal theory, you realize, oh my goodness, this language can be written down. It's got grammar. It's got syntax. And I can learn.
Spoken, and I can express.
And I can also learn a new dialect of nervous system, if nervous system was a language, because the dialect that we often learn as kids can be just reactive or shut down or don't talk about our problems, or we don't learn healthy nervous system regulation most of the time, especially in Western culture. And I think we intuitively know, yes, I can understand that my nervous system is out of kilter. And I'll share a story with you, Mark. I don't know if I've actually told you this. In the early days when I was working with mothers, I was just trying everything that was safe, but just trying everything. And there was be fish oil, magnesium, and herbs. And then I'd ask my mothers, what would you give the gold star to out of everything that we've done? And almost universally, it was Yoga Nidra.
Mm.
And this was going back, I don't know, 12 years or something like that. And to be
Okay.
honest, and I'm almost ashamed to say it, I was like, damn, Yoga Nidra again. I want the real thing. Being a doctor, one ill, one pill. And I was
Yeah.
like, no, what's the capsule? Well, Yoga Nidra doesn't work on a prescription pad.
Yeah, it doesn't work. There's no business model for Yoga Nidra, unfortunately.
It's not only like, that's a harder sell in terms of clients.
Something you have to do. Something you have to do.
And then something you need to get some practice in, because you're not going to feel better after one session. There's almost a momentum that sort of happens. And this was one of the breakthroughs doing your course, Mark, was actually taking it further and getting a much deeper understanding myself. And this experience of so many mothers saying Yoga Nidra, just that reworked for me. The magnesium and the fish oil was good, and the psychologist was great. And I was like, I need to learn more about this, and not just from someone telling me about it, but from an experiential point of view. And it was when we went to Bali, because I've been doing Yoga Nidra, but just be 20 minutes, a couple of times a week. And you mentioned yogi before. I'm a very on-off yogi, so have a good practice for a couple of months, don't for a couple of months, and I'm at peace with that. And my Yoga Nidra was like that. And then going to Bali and doing your course and I don't know, sometimes we're doing it 3 or 4 times per day.
That's a lot of Yoga Nidra.
And it just sent me out into this realm of experience. And then I think I shared with you my Oura ring that I was wearing was telling me I was in deep sleep during my Yoga Nidra. And I was like, no, I'm not asleep. I'm just relaxed. And I was like, wow, if this can almost trick my Oura ring into thinking I'm in deep sleep, profound.
There's something going on around here. Yeah.
And it was just confirmation more than anything. And there is increasing research coming out in Yoga Nidra. The world's most famous neuroscientist, Andrew Huberman, you may be aware of it. He loves Yoga Nidra for different reasons that perhaps we do. He's much more interested in the addiction space. And but it just shows you it's got many aspects to it.
Many applications. That's one of the great things about Yoga Nidra is that Huberman, as you mentioned, he's very much that biohacking, bro culture, I call it. We want to make, it's very American, we're going to make ourselves better. Well, I want to become this optimized version of myself. And it's, hacking the system, which is great. He's got a very strong following of what do they call Huberman husbands, all these men who just fall in love and follow him. But look, if it's getting all these women talk about their Huberman husbands, like, oh, my husband's, he's following Andrew Huberman. But look, if it's getting people to slow down, and he's, again, very American, rebranded it as NSDR, non-sleep deep rest. He's interested in connecting it to hypnotherapy, which is a really interesting leap that he's made, because there is obviously within the use of Sankalpa, there's a strong connection there. But what you and I are very much sharing, I think, is this, the love of the tradition, the yoga tradition, as we've come out of this traditional practice of Yoga Nidra, but also appreciating the blessing, the deep blessing of this repeated practice of slowing down. And coming into that experience of quietude, and that's it's magic. I can't explain it in any other way for people who are busy brains, and I most certainly fit into that category. The capacity, the skill to be able to come into this no mind state. So you mentioned before, you can clearly show that the body is in fact asleep, but my mind is still conscious, but there's almost an absence, and some of the research is showing that Yoga Nidra is dropping us deep into this delta state where there's almost no thought. And that is magic. That's what the yogis sort of get to, of this, they talk about turiya, this timeless place. And for me, psychologically enables everything to sort of decompress, but physiologically, as I'm sure you could perhaps share with us, it's been shown that once you get into that space, that's where the deep healing can really happen.
Yeah, and it's not about the Yoga Nidra, it's about the space that you go into with Yoga Nidra that sort of does the healing. And
Yes.
if you look at these yogis, they were the OG biohackers.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah.
They weren't proclaiming it, but and yoga is a real science. When you're looking at what the definition of science really is, because it's a complete system. My concern is when you take one element out of a complete system and utilize it, are you going to lose something along the way? And
Probably.
yeah, you definitely can. And one of my deep insights, especially doing your training, Mark, was the whole point of asana is to get you ready for meditation. And the whole point of meditation is to get you ready for nidra. And that's part of the science, as it were, of how yoga as a complete system is designed to work. And obviously there are many other aspects to that interwoven.
Sure.
And I've always been curious, going, okay, if we're not moving our body correctly, it's going to be harder to then get the benefits from something like Yoga Nidra. And I think the asanas is just about trying to teach the body how to move more in alignment and in harmony.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it's all, look, I wouldn't want to take out one spoke of the wheel, but I think understanding that you're not going to hands down your way to enlightenment. It's just not going to happen, or back bend or forward bend or whichever bend or twist you're trying to do. But there are schools of yoga and I participated in that for a long time, thinking that these advanced yogas were the people doing the incredible drop backs and, the pretzel moves and whatever they were, incredibly dexterous or strong. It's really impressive stuff, and it's beautiful to see and beautiful to practice, but it is only a part of the package. Once you begin to experience pranayama and the tantric methodology and bringing in bandhas and mudras, mantras into practice takes it to a whole different dimension. And then coming into this quieter practice, they cross-pollinate. So my Yoga Nidra, in fact, supports my asana practice. My meditation supports my Yoga Nidra, et cetera, et cetera. They're all marinating in this big soup, which helps to make it truly wonderful.
Yeah, it's not compartmentalized and not, but it's all an integrated system. And the breath work pranayama is very much essential in that. And now all the research is showing breath awareness is part of being able to get into relaxation. You can't relax without breath awareness. I mean, it just doesn't happen. And I read somewhere that the ancient yogis worked out 11 ways to hack into the vagus.
Okay.
And most of us just use the main one, which is the breathing. But as that they do other quite complex things, including swallowing bits of cord and pulling them back up and what have you. And it's just another way to stimulate the vagus in a healthy way. I'm not recommending any of the ways necessarily, but the breath
sure
is one that's easily accessible.
Yeah, it's probably the quickest and most accessible. It gets hard, but natural breath awareness it's not easy to sit there and attend to the breath. And I've got a theory that that's why a lot of the other stuff was invented, just to keep us attentive, because we humans have disparate minds and we need almost more stimulation and more exploration so we can come back to that final practice, which in fact is natural breath awareness, or a simple mantra practice, which I think for a lot of people is a stand-up practice. And what I've found, having done a vast array of practice and still do fairly sophisticated practice at times, it is the simple things that I come back to again and again. And Yoga Nidra very much is one of them. I've often said I wouldn't want to have to do this, but if I had to hand back all my toys and I could only keep one toy, it would be Yoga Nidra. If I could only do one practice ongoing, it's the practice for me
100%.
that keeps me. I keep coming back to. And I've heard you say before, it's, as far as bang for buck, it's the best thing going around.
Yeah, and I 100% agree. If I only had one tool in my toolbox, it would be Yoga Nidra. And for my time poor, exhausted mothers that I'm working with, they don't have the space to be navel gazing. And I'm very honest with them. Look, if we can get 20 minutes where you're able to put aside and start relaxing, can we make 18 minutes of that really good stuff rather than empty mind and meditation, or even as beautiful as a gratitude practice is, it's not necessarily that immediate, and you have to really embody it. And so for my very busy minded, exhausted mums, this is why it's got voted the most useful thing out of all the things that I've been trying over the years. And so
Yeah, so good. So good. I had a couple of my teachers, Guru Premananda, who was the author of a book called Mother is First Guru. I don't know if you ever picked that up. It was an old school yoga book, but it was very much about mothering and integrating yoga practice into the journey of motherhood. And she would just go on and on and on about it. She ran a lot of, I wasn't involved in her mother's groups, but she ran for a long time. Another teacher ran her Vine. These were in Sydney, two yoga teachers I knew who both sort of taught at the Mangrove Yoga Ashram. And they just would rave and rave about Yoga Nidra of like, it is, if you're seeing people who are pregnant, they would just, you need to learn now. You need to get this part of your practice now. I mean, it's going to help your pregnancy, but it's really going to come into play postpartum. So can I talk to you a little bit more about your journey to get to where you are as a man, but a father
Sure.
And supportive of you've got a beautiful wife and you've supported her on her journey of motherhood. But what really drove you to get to that point? Going, this is actually what I really want to do.
Well, and in terms of motherhood, and I've really got skin in the game, as I say, because I've got 3 kids. And I was the main doctor in Nimbin for 8 years. So it's a remote town. It's about an hour inland from Byron Bay. And we decided to start a family there. And my introduction to the home birth world was a starting point for me, just to crack open my rigid mind, shall we say, because I wasn't really open to any of that stuff previously. Because I was the main doctor in this small town, I could see everything. And so I got to see the mothers coming in complaining of exhaustion. I got to see the community nurse would go out and visit them, what they had to say. And there wasn't anyone else to be managing them or supporting them through their journey. And I was just seeing similar themes everywhere, and including with Caroline, my partner. And I was like, oh, there's a pattern here. Okay, let's just go or buy the textbook and I'll learn more about it. And lo and behold, there's no textbook. Wasn't then, still isn't now, in terms of what's really going on neurobiologically, hormonally, metabolically, and from a nervous system point of view for mothers. And this whole world of psychoneuroendoimmunology, which is combining all of these, and there are actually journals that are titled that. You can't differentiate your mind from your hormonal system, from your metabolism, and from your immune system. There's so much overlap. And we know we can get ourselves so stressed that we can cause ourselves gastritis or a cold sore to pop up. We're very familiar with at least some of the manifestations of those things.
Sure.
And yeah, I'm just a curious person. I also wanted to help my clients, really wanted to understand and help support Caroline. And it just started me on a journey of just looking at information. And after I realized there wasn't much in the medical space, because once you're 6 weeks postpartum, the system just goes, baby's alive, you're alive.
Graduated.
Yeah. You're out of here.
We're done.
From a physical point of view, and it's a similar process, 6 months in terms of psychological challenges. And we know that motherhood is forever. It doesn't stop at 6 weeks after the baby's born. And now with all the new research, it showing that how a mother's brain is forever changed in profound ways that are meant to be good, but it's a vulnerable change. And so this idea of matrescence, the becoming of a mother, adolescence, the becoming of an adult, there's a lot of similarities hormonally, brain change wise, and this time of vulnerability afterwards. And things don't always go to plan in terms of the recalibration of the brain. And this is what we're seeing in Western culture with mothers, that the recalibration hasn't gone to plan and things are out of tune. And the only way I'm really aware to get it back in to tune is through the nervous system, whilst supporting nutrition, nutrients, supplements, sleep, relationship health, all of those kind of things. And the body has a hierarchy. And whether we like it or not, nervous system is at the top of the hierarchy. What people don't realize is all your hormones, the initial signal is decided in your brain, and signals are sent out to the glands that then produce hormones.
Isn't that an interesting revelation? I'm just going to jump in there because this idea of hierarchy is, it was always the mind. I need to fix my mind and then I fix everything else. Or the alternative, I'm going to go the other way, I'm going to fix my body. But this idea of the hierarchy, in fact, is the nerve. It's the first response, the first responder to any sense input is our nervous system. And tuning into that awareness, I'm thinking, is probably really key to understanding how we can set ourselves up for really true sense of well-being.
Yeah, totally. And the brain is the headquarters, pun intended, of the nervous system. And so all our hormones are decided by the brain. And when people say it's all in your head, they're being unkind. But ironically, there is this big spike of truth there in terms of it all is happening in your head in terms of, and a lot of your metabolic signaling also starts in the head. So in terms of how your body utilizes energy substrates and glucose and those kind of things, and then not all, but a lot of your immune system function is also governed by the brain. And then that affects basically everything we experience.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. We talk in yoga and meditation practice of working on Ajna chakra first, which is essentially stabilizing the brain, and to crossover with, that's the first port of call in the classical tantric teaching. The yogis have known this for forever. Work on this first. Ajna quite literally means the command center, and that you focus on that first, and then you'll build before you start to really get too stuck into the body, because it sets us up to make good decisions. So balancing the nervous system, balancing the mind, everything can come from that.
And what the ancients talked about but didn't know is that each of these chakras corresponds to a hormonal production part of the body in that hierarchy. So when we're talking the third eye, that's the pineal gland talking to the hypothalamus. And
quite literally the command center.
Yeah, exactly. It's where all this information is going in, being processed, and then being sent out in terms of a response. And so given that the body doesn't get it wrong, it's just doing what it thinks is required given the information that's coming in. And if you're feeling overwhelmed and underslept and not supported, that's the information that's going into your brain, and then your body is going to respond in various ways. But it eventually becomes a decompensation where the body goes into more of a protection mode, and that's where chronic fatigue, mental health issues, addiction, and is probably the basis for things like autoimmune disease and other things, in terms of at least the match that starts the fire.
Yeah. So look, I know that you run a clinic, and you do have a lot of mothers who you work with directly and have done. You're based out of Byron Bay, and I guess you probably work online as well. And you also run groups, courses as well.
Yep.
And I think you're also running now courses to educate other medical professionals. Is that right?
Yeah, that's relatively recent. So it just started this year, but to get this information, and I've just been very lucky to basically have started this journey as all the neurobiology understanding of the human maternal brain started. The first significant medical paper on the internal workings of the human maternal brain was in 2017.
Wow. That's not
My,
long ago.
no, my book came out in 2018, and so I was just this. I've just been very fortunate to ride that wave and be introduced to information and people that have really supported my journey. And then my journey now is to then educate and help support others. And so I've done a lot of
Yes.
courses with mothers regarding this, and now I'm moving to the health professionals that deal with mothers. And so the course is called Matriatrics. It's a made up word. I've made that up. But
Good word.
sometimes made up words can help with concepts. But we've got
Yes.
geriatrics of the elderly, pediatrics of the young, for example. Mothers should be in their own medical group because it's showing, no, you're not the same on so many levels. And even your health risks change as a consequence of becoming a mother. Mostly for the better,
absolutely.
but not always. And so Matriatrics is what the course is called, and I'm loving it. It's going super well, and slowly just building a community of like-minded practitioners who want to think outside their traditional medical school training, but incorporate science. This is, us doctors always feel much more comfortable when there's a lot of science behind us to support our recommendations. So,
Yeah, and good, because you're science professionals. Like it's so interesting. It wasn't that long ago that no doubt some of the stuff that you were exploring and suggesting was considered to be anti-science. Isn't it lovely that you can actually now just teach and instruct and support people with the stuff that you've always instinctively known was good, but now you've got the science, the good science, and more increasing amounts of science, and that there's energy. I mean, look, thanks to Andrew Huberman, not exclusively, but he's certainly done a huge amount to really popularize. I think he's instigated a lot of research and attention going into some of these areas, particularly around the sort of stuff that I'm interested in, breath work, Yoga Nidra, etc. I know that they're currently doing some ongoing research into Yoga Nidra, which is very cool. I can't wait to see. I mean, those guys have got access to good money and lots of fun toys to play with, no doubt. It'll be really interesting to see what they come out with.
and they speak the language of science to help other science-minded people, which is also important. And a really good example of that, Mark, is the microbiome. Not only of the gut, that was considered to be a bit witchy over 10
Indeed.
years ago.
Yes.
Now it's front and center of so much of our health journey. And even though how to modulate and manipulate the microbiomes is not straightforward, it's hardcore science now.
Yeah. Yeah. And look, most psychologists are talking about it. I remember it wasn't that long ago. I was actually working for a big disability support organization. It was about 10 years ago now. And we had a behavioral support team, and they were psychologists, and they were good psychologists, and they were behavioral support specialists, specializing in behavioral psychology. And we were helping to develop behavioral support plans for people with challenging behaviors in the mental health and disability space, and with intellectual disability, etc. So I remember having it, and I had just sort of finished my meditation training, yoga training, and I was starting to really teach actively. And I had a number of fairly passionate conversations with the head of that department, who was a clinical psych, and said, look, would we not be bringing some mindfulness aspects into? And he was just like, no, gold standard is cognitive behavioral therapy and medication. And that's all he wanted to talk about. I was like, a little bit of meditation, a little bit of breathing, maybe something. But no. If he said that now, he'd probably lose his job. Because if you're a psychologist in today's world and you're denying that meditation is really useful, the gold standard has changed.
Yeah, and that's
meditation, mindfulness is now part of it.
Oh, very much. And that's the 20th century paradigm. We just stick with certain things and we don't deviate from that. And now in the 21st century, we're understanding we still have to stay with science, but there's so much more that science has shown us regarding how to support people's journeys, whether it be physical health issues or mental health issues or both.
Yes, and this relationship between microbiome, the brain and the gut, It's a really interesting journey that, again, yogis have known about for quite a long period of time, and science is now showing us how we can best support that and how we can really optimize our mental health through. Look, it can just start with really just eliminating simple things in your diet, optimizing gut health. It's a really big part of the journey. And obviously, say, cognitive behavior therapy and the other modalities are really useful too. But when you start to build cohesive protocols which introduce different elements, you're just optimizing results.
Exactly. And a lot of this is rediscovering what the yogis and ancient cultures knew, but providing new insights. Even Hippocrates, the supposed father of medicine, he's got two great quotes. It was over 2,000 years ago. Food is thy medicine, which most people have heard. And then his other classic is death begins in the colon. And
Wow.
I'm learning. And not knowing about the microbiome and mucosal degradation, short chain fatty acids that then help modulate the immune system and brain neurotransmitters and everything that we're just discovering now about the good and the bad of the microbiome. But there was just an observation that says something about when things start to go wrong in the belly, the body starts to age much quicker and starts to have more problems. And I think the yogis were very observational, but then had a system, the yogic system, which is a type of science, to build on people's observations over generations. And something that you talked a lot about, Mark, is the importance of lineage. And it took me a while to really appreciate why lineage isn't so important, but it's, for me, the core of it is, and you can correct me if I'm going down the wrong path here, but it's about almost the purity of information. But people have been working so hard in terms of their insights that it's not about reinterpreting or matching. It's about taking that core knowledge. Yes, you can add to that, but you need to be in the space of that deep observation. If it gets corrupted or tainted, it's like information on your hard drive. It needs to be copied correctly. And each generation is like trying to copy information to the next collective hard drive, so to speak.
Yeah, that's lineage is really important. That what we explore with yoga is it goes back a very long way. And look, I have interpreted what's been ought to be by my teachers. I'm teaching out of the Satchitananda lineage, which connects to the Shivananda lineage, which goes all the way back to Shankaracharya and back ultimately to Shiva. That's they say the Shiva is the Adi Guru, came from this download from the heavens. The importance there is that I'm by no means bound to teach by that certain method and teach that practice exactly as it was taught to me. In fact, I don't. Often I will amend and adjust and teach things in a way that is more suitable to, say, if I'm teaching mothers. I don't need to burden them with all of the stuff about all the mantras and all this. I want to teach Yoga Nidra in a way that's really specific and useful to them, so they're going to get the maximum impact. But I need to know where it came from, so I don't feel like I need to make it up and embellish. And understanding, it's interesting, Huberman's a good example where he sort of rebranded Yoga Nidra, called it NSDR, very much focused on this biohacking idea. He's missing. I hear him talk a lot about Yoga Nidra, and I've listened to a lot of stuff. I've never heard him talk about God. I've never heard him talk about this experience of Turiya, which is really only accessible when you've done a fair bit of Yoga Nidra practice, a longer practice, and this opportunity that's available to experience complete stillness, that can get missed. That's easy to, I've lowered my heart rate, my breathing, all these different markers I'm improving myself, but don't miss the big one, that yoga is in fact about connecting to Shiva, back through the lineage.
But on one aspect, Andrew Huberman is introducing a Trojan horse for people to get in touch with their divinity, which is, I think, for me, what it's really
Absolutely.
about.
Love it. Yes. Yeah. I'm all for it. Just because if hundreds of millions of people connect to NSDR, they're like, wow, cool. Look, I'm all for that. Just just lower the heart rates and let's just slow down a little bit. It's going to have a really profound impact on the world. But if, a very small percentage of them, and it's always generally is a very small percentage, you go, you know what, I want to know more. And we need to know that if they go looking for more, that more is available, that we can actually still trace back through the lineage and they can find themselves. The core texts of yoga really haven't changed very much. The Yoga Sutras is still the perennial text of the yoga tradition. It hasn't changed very much. And the reason it hasn't changed very much is because no one's written anything better. It's still the best thing available. And I've read it cover to cover. I've read lots of books about yoga and meditation. Most of them, in fact, there is still nothing that is, and it's beautiful in its simplicity. It doesn't extrapolate on the ideas. It introduces the little synopsis of it's a sutra. It's a thread of an idea that you as a student and as a teacher can begin to interpret and explain. So yeah, that is ultimately the importance of lineage. Look, for many people, you don't need to go down the whole journey, but it's nice to know that the stuff that you're exploring, it's been tested. If you're practicing Yoga Nidra, you can know that those techniques have been refined by some really smart people over a long period of time. I do have another question for you. I'd actually like to, I'm aware of time, and I just want to, assuming that people are going to listen to this podcast and there's going to be some mothers out there or people who are supporting mothers. You've done a lot of work, as I mentioned before, we discussed with mothers individually and in groups and educating others. What are your key protocols that you recommend? Is there sort of a core, what did you call it before? The magic approach. What is the magic approach?
The magic approach involves correcting any nutritional deficiencies. So it's very hard to get if your iron's low, for example. It's going to be a much longer, harder process. So just correcting nutritional deficiencies, trying to explore what sort of diet works better for you without it becoming a full-time job.
That's sort of stuff that could be done with a doctor or a naturopath and do some testing, get some understanding of levels.
Yeah.
And the consultation would be really helpful.
It doesn't have to be too elaborate. It's just if we can eat a slightly less inflammatory diet, that's going to help where we are. And then if you're feeling better, you can start exploring those sort of things more. Then once we have a foundation, we can then start looking at the nervous system. And the nervous system really involves sleep. And then, what I've actually started using this term, not realizing it came from Andrew Huberman, non-sleep deep rest, which is deeply relaxing during the day, but not being asleep.
AKA Yoga Nidra.
And our umbrella concept at the clinic, and if we have a look at it from a polyvagal theory point of view, we're designed to be more relaxed than we are stressed at our baseline. So if you kind of look at the sympathetic versus parasympathetic, we need to be slightly more relaxed, parasympathetic system than we are stressed, sympathetic at our baseline. When things are happening, you need that activation, you need sympathetic, but when things come back down, and most people who are very stressed, including most of the mothers that I see, that's not the case. They are slightly more stressed and they are relaxed at their baseline. And so part of the magic approach is retraining the nervous system. So it's like going to the gymnasium if you're not very...
Absolutely.
And for me, yoga is the perfect neural gymnasium, if you like, because it's got all the aspects there that it's good for the nervous system, the breath work, the asanas,
yes,
the Yoga Nidra. And we just need to start somewhere. And so part of our umbrella concept is tiny things frequently, small things every day, big things once a week, and bigger things once in a while. That refers to time frames of getting more relaxed than you are stressed. So tiny things might be just 20 seconds. And just doing that as many times during the day as you can. And the research is really clear. Breath awareness and a sense of presence. You need those two things. And so a good example is having a cup of tea. So smell the cup of tea. So that's bringing in a physical sense to bring you into a present state. It's not natural for the brain to be present. The brain's always thinking about the near future. And then just 4 breaths in, 4 breaths out. We know that the slow, even out breath is the best part of that. And don't be too elaborate about it. Just do it and then just move on back to the chaos. That's okay. That's a tiny thing. And that's very much like putting a coin into a piggy bank. The more coins you put in, the better the piggy bank, really.
I often talk about the micro dosing of meditation and just that simple breath of the sip, sip, sigh breath. Are you familiar with that one? I'm sure I've done it with you. That inhale, beautiful little nervous system reset that you can do.
Yeah, and engaging the parasympathetic nervous system, exactly. And doing those tiny things is helpful, but we need other things. And so a small thing, 20 minutes once a day. These are minimums. If you want to...
Yes.
And so Yoga Nidra is a perfect thing for that. Because if you're exhausted and your mind's racing like crazy, good luck with open-minded meditation or trying to really get into a gratitude practice where you're feeling it at a deep core, even though both of those things are super valid. And then just trying to work out a structure where you can get 20 minutes sit away from kids and in all the trappings of mum life. Once a week, doing 60 minutes. Okay. The three things we typically recommend that are easier: acupuncture, massage, and restorative yoga.
Okay,
so
great. Yeah.
Other types of yoga, good for lots of things, but not necessarily for what we're looking at in terms of more relaxed than you are stressed.
Yeah. Restorative could also be yin yoga, which is phenomenally popular. It's amazing how people just clamor for, because I think they scream for it. You get a taste of that. Your nervous system gets a taste of the deep parasympathetic letdown, that amazing feeling of the ventral vagal system. It's what so many of us, me very much included. I don't know how much I need it until I've done it, and I'm go, oh, that's what I needed.
Exactly. And I'll share a story just from a few weeks ago. I had a client come in going, oh, I love the Yoga Nidra, but I'm doing it wrong. I'm like, how can you be doing it wrong? Tell me. And she said, I only hear the beginning and the end, and then I fall asleep.
Okay.
And I'm like, that's exactly what you're after, because your brain's still listening. But when you go into a deep state of relaxation, your brainwave activity goes somewhere between alpha and theta, and you lose a sense of time and place. And this is what we're after with these, the 20-minute, 60-minute things. And so it's
interesting. A lot of people report that feeling, oh, I fell asleep, I'm not getting it. It's like, there's evidence, and you and I have discussed this in the past. There's, I think, that Swedish yoga school. I think that's Swedish. They did an interesting study where they were testing people. Are they actually, people, when they're reporting being asleep, the evidence shows that most people, in fact, aren't asleep. Although they might think they're asleep, they're in fact not asleep.
Yeah, well, and that's the magic. That's why it's called non-sleep deep rest. And it's just that your memory in that deep place gets switched off. And that's why we have this
amazing
kind of gap. But the brain's hearing all the instructions, those kind of things. If you wake up 2 hours after Yoga Nidra and
you were probably asleep. Yeah.
Drool on the pillow and you're wrapped up in your headphone cord. You went to sleep.
Yeah, and you probably needed that sleep. So don't feel bad about that either.
But give yourself some gift. Exactly.
The ultimate test, if you do wake up with the instruction to come back, then you in fact weren't asleep, because you were still receiving and responding to those instructions.
Exactly.
So your client, she's doing it perfectly right.
Exactly. So rather than she felt like she was a poor student, I was like, no, that's what we're after. That's exactly what we're after.
Yes.
And for the 60-minute thing once a week, it's also important to go to that space. So when we're talking about yin yoga, restorative yoga, we almost need to have that experience like we had with Shavasana. It was like, oh my God, I went somewhere. Because that's one of the, I think, almost key experiences of being in a very deep, relaxed space. We lose a sense of time and place. And we can say that whatever you did, well, that was great.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I feel just thinking my way through that protocol, I feel optimistic.
And then the last part of that protocol, and this is where your work comes in, Mark, is a bigger thing once in a while, which is a 3 to 5 day retreat-like experience, not a family holiday with the kids.
Yes.
And so a lot of mothers, if they have whatever, if there's time away, it's going holiday with the kids, and that's not going to really, it's probably going to make the sympathetic overactivation worse.
You might have fun, but it's not R&R. No.
I've heard so many mothers say it's just work in a different environment with less tools.
Yes. Yes. Okay.
I've heard that enough time going, that's the experience of most mums on a holiday. And
sure. Yeah.
And so, and this is outside of having really small kids, but can a mother have a retreat-like experience once a year? And this is where I think yoga retreats, because they're more common than other types of retreats typically, and they're much more focused on, there's all the science behind it. It's not necessarily going on a biohacking or Wim Hof retreat or something that may not get you to that relaxed place.
Yeah. Yeah, there's something really powerful about a concentrated experience coming together with a group of like-minded individuals, building sangha as well. Those friendships you make in those experiences are really important, to people, whether that's another group of mothers or just a group of friends, people on that same path. And like have, in my experience, yoga teacher training courses, yoga retreats, whatever it is, coming together for a period of time, particularly when you're extracted from the world a little bit, it reminds us what's really important.
Exactly. It
You
gets
might
us
go
realigned
back to the chaos.
Yeah. It reminds us of our values. It can help reset the nervous system to some degree, and then back to the chaos. Exactly. And I've had a number of mothers do Vipassana, and I think a lot of the time, as great as a Vipassana is, it's too much of a jump for what the nervous system needs. It needs to be something softer, more restorative.
Yeah.
And there's always time.
Vipassanas are amazing. But just so people don't know, Vipassana is what Oscar's talking about, is this amazing offering through the SK Goenka tradition, where you can go away in various parts of the world and do a 10-day supported meditation sit, which I would say it's diving into the deep end of the pool. A lot of people who've never done any meditation before go, I'm just going to start there, because it's really readily available. It's sort of funded. They offer it by donation, so it's relatively affordable. And I did it a number of times. In fact, I had hardly done any meditation, just dived in and went, I'll give it a go, and just struggled my way through it, I really appreciate having done that. However, I've realized over time that there are slightly more gentle approaches, and particularly for people who are already exhausted, there might be something a little bit more middle path that might be more appropriate.
Yeah, and in that sort of nervous system gymnasium analogy, it's like going to the heavy weights end of the gym rather than maybe something a bit more gentle. Yeah, there's always time to do the heavy
start on the treadmill.
Yeah, exactly. It's a cycle, and exactly don't start with the heavy lifting.
Yeah. Okay. So, but in some way, shape, or form, those little moments, and as a partner, perhaps supporting a mother on their journey, really valuing that for that person to be able to step away and have that time. It's important. It's important, for sustainable families. I've got the overarching theme of this podcast, Oscar, is the gentle revolution, which is very much, for me, it's about creating sustainable humanity. So the idea of I've called it's the gentler evolution, so we don't have to bump into things before we actually learn how to change. That's why I got into meditation. I used to be a journalist and was very interested in politics and social endeavors. I really wanted to create a better world. And what I've realized over time is, through regulated human beings, create what we need first to create. You might have the smartest, most capable human beings in the world, but if they're not emotionally regulated, we're still going to have a lot of problems. And supporting motherhood at the core, it's at the epicenter of the human experience, right? So it's something that we all must circle around and go, how can we support mothers and fathers and families? But motherhood has been neglected, and we need to rally round and support, make motherhood and mothers successful and
Yeah.
make them harmonious and happy, help them to be.
And if we want emotionally well-regulated leaders, they will only come from families that are emotionally well-regulated, and that initially comes from the mother-baby sort of relationship. So the mothers are fundamental in the evolution of healthy humans, and obviously the parents' well-being, and then there are kind of layers around that. But in the middle of the onion, so to speak, is the mother. And then just to talk to your point about gentle revolution, what I love is that the word revolution means to re-evolve back to a previous state. Because if it's something,
I didn't even know that.
So re-evolving. So
Yes.
if we're moving to a new, that's evolution. If we're moving to something new, and it obviously in common terminology, revolution, revolting, it sounds more militant and overthrowing. But at its core, it's about going back to a previous state where there wasn't this issue or this problem or the specific thing that we're butting up against. And nothing's perfect. Yoga is not perfect, but I think it is whole and complete. And it's a really good focus point if we're going to re-evolve. But we don't want to re-evolve to something that isn't so healthy, but something that is good for the planet, good for humans, and is going to be part of or help to contribute to the solution and not to all the problems that we're facing at the moment.
Yes.
So,
yeah, as one of my dear teachers, Swami Satchidananda, used to say that yogis are ambassadors for the peace, ambassadors for peace. And as a teacher, you're a teacher of peace, showing people how to be peaceful, introduce how to be peaceful within ourselves. That's where it starts. I feel harmonious and peaceful.
Yeah, without internal peace, it's a lot harder to manifest societal peace, isn't it? Yeah, 100%.
It really is. Yeah, it really is. Well, look, I think we should wrap it there. I'm aware of time it's an illusion, but we've both got clocks ticking. I know that you certainly do, and you're a busy guy, and I really appreciate the time that you've taken to join me today and share your message. And on a bigger picture, as your journey as an ambassador for peace, I would like to ask you one more question, though. It's a personal question.
Sure.
How's your Yoga Nidra practice? It's something where I caught up with you a few weeks ago as well, because as you said before, you've studied with me. I've been your teacher, and it really excites me when I see someone grab a practice and go, "Oh, I'm bringing this into my life," particularly a discerning individual such as yourself. So, could you share a little bit about what your personal practice looks like?
Yeah, certainly. So that's something I'm pretty regular with. So to be honest, I'm probably doing Yoga Nidra 4 to 5 times per week. And for me, it works best around the middle of the day, just before I'm having my natural slump in energy. And it's like a reset. I've got good energy for the rest of the afternoon at work. I lie on the examination table and we'll do it then. My staff are very used to not trying to resuscitate me.
It's
Okay, so we'll be concerned. And I've got a collection of different apps on my phone. And I just sometimes, what am I up for today? And I think one of the things with Yoga Nidra, we need to be really discerning. There's a lot of things out there that I don't think are Yoga Nidra that have the label. And what concerns me about that is I don't feel them working.
Yes.
And I find them sometimes quite irritating also. And then I think it's giving Yoga Nidra, not necessarily a bad name, but almost like a neutral name. It's taking out, and I always use a fairly firm surface. I can't do Yoga Nidra in bed, for example, because there's something about having a firm surface. It's just, I can get to that disappear zone, I call it, more easily. I love working on the Sankalpa. So, is it Kamini Desai? I might be pronouncing her name wrong, but she's got a couple of her apps and I've read her books and what have you. And she really talks about our life work is just trying to make the best Sankalpa we can possibly make.
Yes, just a Sankalpa is a resolve that we make in Yoga Nidra. So it's a really important tool that we bring into our Yoga Nidra practice. I often talk about it as a superpower. This gives us the ability to really refine our intention and, as Kamini Desai says, really evolve into that best version of who we are.
Well, and it's an essential ingredient for Yoga Nidra. So if you're not having something similar, it's like not using salt in your cooking. You're missing out on something that's pretty fundamental.
Yes. Yeah.
And I really enjoy working, just slowly improving that over months and years. What really resonating gives me like a body tingle when I internally say, going, okay, that's actually feeling really good, because it's an honest experience. It's not like I'm wanting a new car or a new house or type self-affirmation or those kind of things. When you're talking something, it's very personal, but when you're really feeling a good Sankalpa, the body reacts in a very kind of favorable way. And so there's something I've been, it's not like I overthink it, it's just in the moment.
The Sankalpa should ultimately speak to, and Tantra talks to us as being resonance. We're a vibration, and a Sankalpa should speak to your highest vibration. And that's why we get that physical connection to it when it's true. This feeling of like, that's me. That is where I'm going to be best expressed. And that's how I'm going to come through fulfilling that Sankalpa, this resolve that we're making. And it is, you mentioned before, this connect with NSDR. Huberman talks about NSDR being Yoga Nidra and also hypnotherapy. And so that state you can get it. The difference with hypnotherapy, usually you're going to having someone else guide you in there. But when introducing Sankalpa into Yoga Nidra, it becomes self-hypnotherapy. We're actually literally able to reseed our subconscious mind, which takes the practice into this whole, it's a way beyond just relaxing the nervous system right there, right? We're literally reprogramming our DNA.
Well, 100%. But to do that self-hypnosis, we need to be quite relaxed. And so this is why the Sankalpa is not at the beginning or at the end. It's in the kind of the right stage to get the mind and body relaxed. Introduce the Sankalpa, and it is a type of self-hypnosis. I'm sure it is. And the other thing, before we finish, Mark, you introduced me to the concept of self-Yoga Nidra. And I remember when you first mentioned that, I was a bit like, as if you can, I'm always skeptical about things. I think this is part of my medical training.
It's a good starting point.
And once I actually started trying so I found myself whenever I'm on a plane, for example, or I had an MRI last year or maybe the year before, I can't remember. But in the MRI, I did a self Yoga Nidra, and I was just so relaxed. I totally forgot I was in the MRI machine. And when they're pulling me out, the gentleman says, "Are you okay?" It was needing to wake me up, and I was like, "No, I'm totally fine." And I've had MRIs before, and they're not pleasant experiences. They're very loud,
terrible space to be. Yeah,
and
I've had one too. Not fun.
Confined space, and they're really noisy. People don't really tell you how war zone like noisy an MRI machine can be like.
Yes.
And I just thought I'd mention that, because that's been, I don't usually recommend to people to do self Yoga Nidra, but that's been personally something that I've really gotten a lot out of, because when I need to do it, it's in times where being on a plane, you can't just take your headphones into, can't ask the MRI technician, do you mind playing this Yoga Nidra track?
Yeah, I mean, look, a set of headphones is great. That we're carrying around a set of headphones with us most of the time. But that ability, I have to do the self yoga nidra. If I wake up in the middle of the night, just do the body rotation and just bring myself
Okay.
back into.
Yep.
It's a really great way of transitioning back into sleep. So learning look, if you're new to yoga nidra, I don't recommend just starting there. Like, I do use a recording and learn more about the practice, but people who've been doing it for a long period of time, and Oscar has been, and I have been, that it's certainly a great thing to explore. And that was shared to me by one of my teachers saying, oh, no, you should definitely learn how to guide yourself in. And I've done that for a long period of time. And I still do that sometimes, as I mentioned, particularly when I wake up in the middle of the night. But I also do use recordings, and you also do use recordings in yoga nidras as well. So it's
most
a
of the
nice thing
time
to,
I'm using recordings. Just when I don't have access to the recording,
yes,
I can understand why in the middle of the night it would work really well. Because if you're having to wake yourself up, pick up the phone, get the head, you're already playing with fire in some ways.
yes, you want to keep as quiet as you can. You wake up with like, all right, I'm aware that I'm awake. I need to do the absolute minimum at this point
Exactly.
to
Rather
try.
than, there are a few notifications on my phone here. I'm awake. I might as well eat.
Yeah, that's a danger zone. That's a
Yeah.
slippery slope.
Exactly.
Look, you did mention before that you're something of an occasional yogi, but then you've just sort of contrasted that with sharing a fairly committed practice to yoga nidra, and I'm here to tell you that actually that pinpoints you as a very dedicated yogi, and that's something that's really interesting about yoga nidra, is because it's so easy and because it's so accessible that people go, oh, it's sort of a cheat code. Well, it is a cheat code, but it's very much the yoga practice. It's a high practice, and I joke around with people. So my yoga practice, it's an afternoon nap. That is my yoga practice. And that is, I do other stuff as well. But if you're just going to commit to a practice, you can have the whole journey with yoga nidra. It can take you a really long way. We talk about sankalpa, not to mention the nervous regulation, and really beginning to unpack and understand the nuance of mind. You can introduce other elements of mantra, etc., into yoga nidra practice as well. It is a powerhouse practice that has the capacity to take us pretty much the whole way. There's not a lot of limitations to where yoga nidra. So it's not just a light little relaxation practice. It is a holistic system of really resetting ourselves and affirming where we want to go in our life and connecting with that purpose on a cellular level.
Yeah, no, 100%. And as you said, if we only had one tool, we're both in agreement that it would be that. But
Yeah,
the reason why I
good friend
mention
to
this
have.
off and on is when I do the breath work and the asanas, I find the yoga nidra works more quickly, more deeply,
Yes.
and
Yeah. They're good friends. They're
well,
very good friends.
and I just have such incredible awe and humility just around the design to be able to work this out over generations, to pass on this knowledge, and it's so useful in the 21st century.
So useful.
It's not like it's outdated, old stuff that isn't relevant in the world anymore. Ageless in that regard, and it's essential that people are doing things to recalibrate their nervous system, their sense of well-being, so they can be more aligned with their truer purpose and truer sense of self. Because it's like cleaning the windscreen. You can actually see where you're going. And I think for me, that's one of the things I really appreciate about Yoga Nidra is it cleans the windscreen of mental clarity for me.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Helps us to make better decisions. You can see where you're going, you can choose where you're going and really affirm with where you want to go. And all of you starts pushing in that same direction. That's important. I think oftentimes we're like, oh, I kind of want to go there, but I'm also, part of me's going there, part of me's going there. I'm veering all over the road. That a singular purpose, and this is the superpower of the yogi that I mentioned before, that once you've locked onto that sankalpa, every part of you is it's a team. We're all of me is working together. Yeah. Well, look, thank you so much, Oscar. I could just keep talking to you You are a font of wisdom, and you've just shared so much beautiful information today, and in the course of our friendship over the years, you've shared so much information with me. So thank you so much for your inspiration and for the work that you do. And I look forward to talking to you again very soon. If people want to contact you, how's the best way to do that?
Just through my website, so droscarserrallach.com, and it's got everything about me on there in terms of courses and whatever I'm up to. So that's a one-stop shop.
Right. And the name of your book, you did mention before that you'd written a book. What is the name of your book?
It's called The Postnatal Depletion Cure.
Okay.
It wasn't actually the title that I chose, but that's what the book publishers thought would be quite good, because it's not a disease and there's no cure. It's more, like I said, the approach. But it's done super well. It's a self-help book for mothers, is what it is.
Fantastic. Yep.
And coming back at you too, Mark, and I really appreciate you and what you do for our community and what you've done for me personally. And this idea of the gentle revolution, it's beautiful. It really is what the world is needing more of, and perhaps less of the other stuff that's taking all the airwaves in terms of, and we don't need to go into that.
Yeah. We're here for it. Vive la revolution. Well, thank you so much. You have a beautiful afternoon and a blessed day, and I'll speak with you very, very soon. Hari Om Tat Sat.
Yep. Thanks, Mark.
Well, I do hope that you enjoyed that episode as much as I did. Dr. Oscar Serrallach is truly a really inspiring man. He's a friend, a co-facilitator, and a great inspirer. So if you want to know more, droscarserrallach.com, check him out. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, if you are at all interested in joining our breathwork, meditation, yoga nidra training, we've got training starting at the end of 2025, August, September. Check out yogicmeditation.net or bambooyogabyron.com. Otherwise, please do share the episodes, follow along. There's lots of great episodes in the pipeline. It is a great pleasure to share the gentle revolution with you. Keep it alive. Hari Om Tat Sat.